The U.S.-Mexico border continues to see record numbers of migrants crossing into the United States. Now, most are coming through Mexico from Central and South America, but Chinese migrants are also entering the U.S. in large numbers. Are all of these migrants entering the U.S. to find a better way of life for themselves or their family, or might something else be at play? Joining me now is Asian affairs expert and author Gordon Chang. Gordon, thank you for being here. You've been tracking this story at the southern border when very few are paying attention. Tell me about this disturbing picture that you're seeing there. What's happening with Chinese migration at the U.S. border, and why are we seeing such an increase, do you think?
Yeah, there's two stories here. One of them is the just unprecedented surge of Chinese migrants into the United States. And that really is the result of distress inside China. So, for instance, we saw in the first 5 months of the current federal fiscal year, the number of migrants from China who were apprehended by U.S. Customs and Border Protection was more than double that was apprehended in all of the preceding federal year. What's going on here is just something that we're just not prepared for. But the other story is ominous. And that is, we are seeing packs of Chinese males in groups between 5 and 15, military age, unattached to family groups, who are pretending not to speak English. Now, Customs and Border Protection has been able to find that some of these males actually have known connections to the Chinese military, the People's Liberation Army. Michael Yan has been at the Darien Gap. That's the 70 or so miles of jungle that separates Colombia and Panama, from which most of these migrants have to cross. And he is extremely concerned because he's a special forces former of his own, and he can recognize military when he sees it.
And so let's go through this. Why are so many Chinese, do you think? Are they leaving China and entering through Mexico? What's driving this? And is this a recolonization, if you will? Are they deploying troops or potential troops into the mainland of the United States? Is that what you think?
On your second question, the answer is definitely yes. I think what we are seeing are saboteurs who will hook up with existing sleeper agents, with people in the consulate. And what we'll see on the first day of a war in Asia is that the United States homeland will be hit. They'll be taking down our grid, poisoning our water, assassinating officials, starting wildfires, detonating bombs in shopping centers. So the Americans are going to be involved in this war, all Americans. And this also means the first real sustained attack and war on American soil since 1812. Now, the first question, many of these migrants go to Ecuador because they allow visa-free entry for the Chinese, and then they make their way up through through South America and Central America into the United States. Some of them are more wealthy; they can fly directly into Mexico, and there we are seeing, just whether they come in through Ecuador or whether they come in through Mexico. They're actually middle-class Chinese because they can afford to pay the Mexican cartels $35,000 a head to be smuggled into America.
Gordon, how many People's Liberation Army personnel could be inside the United States right now? And does that tell us anything about a timeline the Chinese might have for when they might activate these troops?
Yeah, I think we're talking in the thousands, but whatever, and some people say 5,000, some people say 10,000, but whatever the number is, it's growing by the day. And it's not just the migrants, it's people who are working for instance, Chinese state banks, Chinese enterprises, in the consulates, and then just the sleeper agents. So this is a number in the thousands. And we have a Biden administration that is not tracking these Chinese migrants who are known to have Chinese military connections once they come across the border. So really what we're seeing, just imagine what 9/11 would have been like if Osama bin Laden had many more agents in the United States at that time.
Well, Gordon, this is why that story the Wall Street Journal reported a few weeks ago, that the American media just kind of looked the other way. about the Chinese setting up a military training camp and a satellite spy network in Cuba, and everybody just looks the other way. You pair that with troops already on the ground, what are we looking at here? And with the land purchases, those acres of land purchases, Chinese corporations have been gobbling up in the United States. What are we missing here?
Well, one of them is that the Cuban agents could easily work with the Chinese agents on our soil for all sorts of acts of sabotage. And that's where the link up is. You know, with regard to those Wall Street Journal stories about Chinese presence in Cuba, China has had it maintains now 4 listening posts in Cuba directed against the United States. They're at Lourdes, which is the big Soviet listening post. I think it was the largest Soviet listening post outside the Soviet Union. But they're also at Bayucol and Santiago de Cuba. The Wall Street Journal talks about a 4th location. I don't know where that is. But if you pair that up with the training facility, quote unquote, that China wants to establish, that could very well house all sorts of types of missiles. Missiles to take down planes across the United States, missiles to hit our ships as they sortie out to Asia, and of course, short and intermediate range ballistic missiles carrying nuclear weapons. There's all sorts of things that could occur at those facilities.
Frightening. Gordon, I want to move on to something else here. For years, we've been hearing about the Sinicization of religion in China, meaning the CCP forces the accepted religions within mainland China to adopt the style, language, ideology of Chinese communism, even working Chinese communist figures into the narrative of the scriptures, let's say. Now it seems they intend to export this perverted, Zionized Christianity outside the country. A conference was held at the end of June outlining how they might promote this hybrid throughout the world. What do you make of this? And will it be successful? Is there a way to do this?
Yeah, this is one of the most fascinating stories in the world today. Inside China, there is an attempt to eliminate religion. Now, there are 5 officially recognized religions, and 2 of them are Christian. And in those Christian churches that are sort of called the patriotic churches, images of Jesus are being removed. They're being replaced with those of Xi Jinping. And instead of Christian teaching, they're teaching Xi Jinping thought. In addition to this, you have the unofficial, the house churches, which number adherents number in the tens of millions, maybe even more. And this the Communist Party cannot control. But, with regard to your question, yes, they would like to export their brand of Christianity to eliminate Christianity.
And to destabilize and fracture the Christian world, even outside of China.
Yes, that is a United Front Work Department tactic. The United Front Work Department is part of the Communist Party. It is meant to interact with so-called patriotic forces outside of China, and it's meant to subvert free societies like ours. So the effort to target religion outside China will be a Communist Party, not a Chinese central government, but a Communist Party effort with the United Front Work Department leading the way.
Gordon, the U.S. State Department's annual report on international religious freedom was released in May, indicating again China's communist government has significantly and broadly clamped down on religious freedom in the past year. A number of people imprisoned for their beliefs, estimated to be in the thousands, as many as 10,000. Now the Chinese Foreign Ministry continues making statements condemning things like Islamophobia, the targeting of religious beliefs, and, quote, incitement of clashes between cultures. Instead, China's talking about promoting Xi Jinping's Global Civilization Initiative. Can you explain that to the audience? And this emphasis on inter-civilization exchanges and dialogue, what does all that mean?
The ultimate goal is to establish worldwide Chinese rule, not domination, but rule, because Xi Jinping has been pushing the notion of Tianxia, that Chinese rulers not only have the mandate of heaven to rule Tianxia, or all under heaven, but are actually compelled by heaven to do so. China has these sort of bland, gauzy type initiatives. You've heard, you mentioned one of them, the Global Civilization Initiative. There's a Global Security Initiative, a Global Development Initiative. But really what we're all talking about is China adopting the language of others, but attempting to subvert everybody else. This is Xi Jinping's ambitions. And by the way, he believes not only does he have the right and obligation to rule the entire planet Earth, but now his officials are talking about ruling the moon and Mars as part of the People's Republic of China.
Amazing. Well, you know what strikes me, Gordon, just as you were speaking, tying this into the conversations we were having earlier, as the Catholic faith and so much of Western Christianity relaxes and lets go of all mandates from heaven, all supernatural belief, as their doctrine becomes fuzzy and loose, China and Xi Jinping are hardening their not only mandates from heaven, but their approach and their deliberate steps in the world. It's rather remarkable to see the contrast here. We'll see who wins out in the end, but if I were a betting man, well, I won't tell you where I'd put my money. But earlier this week, the UN Human Rights Council intervened on behalf of the family of Jimmy Lai when it halted China's attempt to silence testimony from Jimmy's son, Sebastian. What do you know about Jimmy Lai's current condition, his situation in prison, and can the UN be depended on to support and fight for this incredible 75-year-old freedom fighter's release?
Well, Jimmy Lai, who is Catholic, is in jail in Hong Kong. There have been numerous prosecutions against him, including under the new national security law of China, which was imposed in 2020 on Hong Kong. Jimmy prays the rosary every day with his wife because he's allowed a phone call to do that. As you point out, Sebastian has been raising this issue, not only at the UN, but earlier with the United States. At a UN session, as you pointed out, while Sebastian was talking, the Chinese interrupted him. They really want to go after Jimmy because Jimmy is a signal of defiance. And earlier you were talking about who's going to win, the Chinese communist or the faith. It's going to be faith, because faith is something that the Communist Party cannot deal with, even inside China. Because we mentioned the unofficial churches, numbers probably greater than that of the Communist Party membership. And Christians, especially in the unofficial churches, have a faith that is vibrant, much more vibrant than anybody's faith in communism in China. So faith wins, Raymond, but it's going to be a struggle, and there are going to be many martyrs.
Well, I'm happy to leave it on that hopeful note, Gordon, and I agree with you. I think we have to continue to raise the awareness about the state of these people of deep faith in China and what they're up against and what the intentions are for these smiling diplomats we see all over the United States and the Western world. Gordon Chang, thank you for being here, and you can follow Gordon on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang. Thank you.